Hey, what's going on, family? This is Manuel Godoy from Black Sands, and today I'm interviewing one of the people in the industry. It's like sometimes you don't get to see like the people that are actually in the industry, in the comic industry doing their thing. I'm with Josh Blaylock from Devil's Due and his new company that he formed, Pop Cultivator. And we're going to be talking about industry stuff. This is a rare conversation. We don't really talk about industry that much. So, Josh is here. He's going to be giving you some insights. He's going to tell you all about his origin line, where his company came from, how it all began, right? Maybe some tips and tricks. And then we're going to get into the nitty gritty on what's currently going on with his company and, the indie space in general, right? Where trends are going and how we're going to capitalize on it as a whole, collectively. So first of all, Josh, thank you so much for joining us. Please feel free to introduce yourself to the people here today, and I will be monitoring the comments if anybody has any questions.
Cool, man. Yeah, thanks for having me. Man, like big fan of what you guys are doing here too. It's been awesome to watch you building this ecosystem, and building up Black Sands like you have. I'm Josh Blaylock, as he said, the founder of, most well known as founder of Devil's Due Comics, sometimes known as Devil's Due Publishing. And we sort of got put on the map back in the day I was the first person to really bring back 80s cartoon retro to comics, or really to anywhere like that. And that blew up, started a big trend. And then I'm an artist and a writer. I got into it, starting my own company because that's what I always wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sort of like it was a necessity. You make it happen because you're too impatient to wait for someone else to hire you. So that's like a whole story, and been doing it ever since. Now it's been started published in '96. I've been full time since June of 2001. That's been my life.
Since 2001.
Yeah.
Wow. Was Devil's Due around?
It's been a minute.
Was Devil's Due around that long? Or no, right?
Yeah. Technically I found it. So there's a whole other story about the 80s shit. I'm sorry. I don't know if I can say the language. The 80s stuff on going back even to like apparel and licensing and everything. I came up with the name Devil's Due in like 99 or 2000 as an idea for a streetwear line possibly, but also maybe a name for my like art studio. I was already publishing comics, but I just wanted a name that sounded cool. It didn't really mean anything. And started tinkering around with a logo, which just still became like the logo we used.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was I thought I was gonna be doing I was self-publishing on the side. I had this day job as an art director for a t-shirt licensing company, and I was still planning to quit it because I had built up commercial, corporate clients. I was like, all right, I'm ready to got enough clients. I'm gonna quit, even though that was a cool job, so I can focus. I'll do my clients, and then I'll just do comics full time. I can go to all the cons and stuff, even though there weren't nearly as many back then, and see how many years that takes. And found myself less than a year and a half later with the G.I. Joe license, and that kind of just set things off from there.
How the hell did that G.I. Joe deal go down, man? How did you end up negotiating for G.I. Joe?
I had no idea. I just wasn't going to ask questions if they were getting back to me. And then I found out years later, really, it was about how all the adults in charge didn't understand what the appeal of this was. They didn't understand there was a market for it. And then, but if you were a part of that market, you were it was so obvious to you just drove you crazy, and that no one got it. And also, I realized they didn't know what, no one they took it to knew that either. I found out later Hasbro had taken it to Marvel and DC and taken it around hey, who wants to bring this back? And kind of, I think there was some ego about it too. So they've got too much ego about their brand, which really needed help then and needed revitalized. Mm-hmm. And then they go to Marvel or DC or whatever other publisher, and they're they don't get it at all. They're why would we want that? we heard so many times, why would somebody want something from the 80s? So I had just been in a gig at a job where I got to play a part in doing all that stuff on t-shirts.
Yeah.
So this is like 98, something like that, and 99. And I was with a really small company, and they wanted to do retro stuff, and I got them to do Autobot symbols, Transformer symbols, G.I. Joe, Cobra symbol, and all kinds of 80s cartoon stuff. And we got Voltron, and we called it Old School. And then that just like blew up. They went into Hot Topic, and Gadzooks was a store back in the day they went into, and all these other places like Spencer's. And I had seen for the last 2 years, like, oh, I'm like 21 years old and all my stuff's on like at the malls and stuff. You know, it was so cool to see like that blowing up. I'm thinking like everyone wearing these shirts is going into the comic shops, and Wizard Magazine's writing about all these 80s cartoons obsessively, right?
Yeah, Wizard definitely.
Yeah, if you're like under 35, you probably don't even remember Wizard being like the thing, you know, like that's how you kept up with what was hot in comics. And they would write about the 80s stuff. And so I learned about licensing from that job. So then I just sort of backdoored it, like, hey, I might as well try to go get one of these. Worst they can say is no. Never thinking it was going to happen. I thought I was going to keep publishing my black and white indie stuff.
Yeah.
Up, and I was already going to whatever shows I could. And then like I was like, I can do Transformers or G.I. Joe. And I know Transformers never really ended. It never really, there was always some cartoon series on, and it was always a bigger brand too. Ever since Transformers came along, it had surpassed Joe in dollars and everything. So I was like, G.I. Joe is dead, and it has a stronger actual comic book following for the actual comic book medium because of Larry Hama's run of over 155 issues. And to my shock, they said yes. So I'm just like emailing them back and forth. Right at the time, I was in Cincinnati and I didn't want to be there anymore. I wanted to move to Chicago, and then it looked like might actually happening. I was like, man, if this happens, which is probably not going to, if it happens, I need to set up roots for a while. So I just sold what I had and moved to Chicago at the time, and with my ex-girlfriend. And then it came through, and I had to get the license on my own because I knew I was going to bring up about those malls. I mean, all the t-shirts was, for 2 years, those shirts have been selling like crazy, and everyone's wearing those shirts into the comic book shop, and all the employees are wearing those shirts. And then the Comic Cons, I'm seeing them like everywhere. And so I was shocked when the comic book market, like the retailers and a lot of the press and stuff, and just also they were like, why would somebody want something from the 80s? And I'm like, are you not seeing all the stuff going on around you? Which we already had this fight 2 years ago. And I caught people off guard, and we had orders for, first I knew I had to get the license on my own because otherwise I would explain it forever to some other bigger publisher. And then I would finally get them to realize it was a good idea. And then they'd like pat me on the head and be like, thanks kid, we'll let you write an issue. And they would have just swooped in, and Hasbro would have took it. I was a nobody, so I got it. Then I was like, all right, I'll self-publish this thing if I have to, because I know how to do that. But I went and talked to people, and I got Image Comics agreed to do it. And that was like it. Once it dropped, it became like the #1 Image book. And we had we had 69,000 pre-orders for #1. And then it was set to come out on September 12th, 2001.
Mm-hmm.
So it dropped the day after. Just all those months of planning and everything, which was already on fire. It was already there was so much hype, and the retailers and stuff didn't really get it. They didn't understand this pent up fervor for this, like the first of the 80s cartoon mega powerhouse things to come back as like a updated badass comic. And so it like sold out, and then on top of that, just 9/11 happens, and that was weird, and happened to have the big American flag and everything on the back of that first cover.
Yeah.
So for sure that like probably got people that weren't even planning on buying it to pick it up. And then but yeah, we ended up in 7 years we produced more comics for G.I. Joe than Marvel did in 12 years. And We did Voltron. We did even like older than that. We did Micronauts. We did then we got into a bunch of other licenses. Like actually, I still got this dude here, the monkey. We did Family Guy, horror, a bunch of horror stuff. Somehow we kind of became like the horror indie company for a while. My roots were always the indie stuff. I started publishing my own black and white comics because we couldn't afford to do color yet, and the printing process was different back then.
Yeah.
But, we were doing it and building that up, and so I never really got into it wanting to write like the big Marvel DC titles, even though I was obsessed with drawing and writing my whole life.
Yeah.
I didn't come at it from that angle. I was a major DC fan, but I'm not going to front like if they came in and offered me to write Batman, of course I'm going to do it. But I just never really pursued that, and then suddenly found myself doing all this. We don't do any licensed titles now. It's been all indie stuff and all original creator-owned projects and everything for several years. We're always looking at it. We might be getting back into some licensing. That's always like out there. But it's something the next time we do it, which it may even be sooner than later, but it's got to be something different. Like it's a little more about engaging directly with the readers and the fans, and doing everything from crowdfunding, doing cons, and still getting into the stores and everything too.
Cool. So I have a question. I have most of my audience is African American, right, or from diaspora. So I know that you have some creators in your roster, right, who are also African American. Name some that these guys got to follow.
Everybody definitely check out Sherrod Jackson's Darby webcomic, which he calls Land Before Time meets Pulp Fiction. We've got the we're really like a mix all over the place. One of our and we're not, so it's important first, like we're a studio works with a lot of different independent creators that we publish.
Yeah.
So it's not like we have like a staff of people or anything like that much.
Yeah.
Check out this Kamala Jones, Hard Decora.
Mm-hmm.
She's doing a lot of awesome like crazy anime, like very like, what do you call it, like candy, like there's a name for it.
Is that modern loud color scheme appeal type to it?
Totally, yeah.
Yeah, gotcha. I know you're talking about that. I know you're talking about. It's that modern, kind of neon style, long figured characters and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, as I mentioned, Sherrod, we also had a title called Galaxies for Hire that it's on. Well, he controls it with his co-writer Sean DePasquale. He's part of our Pop Cultivator team. They're it's like two sisters who are. This is like 1,000 years in the future. It's like Guardians of the Galaxy meets a little more adult. But one sister is like they're basically space pirates or like mercenaries. With one of the sisters breaks off to be a cop for this like intergalactic police. But what they don't realize, and it comes into the story, is that their ship that they have, that's like their Millennium Falcon, turns out to be the missing piece of an ancient ancient Voltron kind of robot.
Okay.
You can check that out at devilsdo.net. We have a lot of most of our stuff available. Shard also did a book called Semantic Lace, which is like a really cool little manga ahead of its time. One of the only manga we ever published.
Devilsdo.net, right?
Yeah.
Devilsdo.net. You can look at the whole catalog over there. And let's see. Giselle has an interesting question. She says, how many titles have you published?
Oh, man, over the years? Probably. I think if you go to the Devil's Due Facebook page, facebook.com/devilsduecomics, that's there's an album in there that has every cover of every book we've done up until maybe like 2013 or 14, and that's got over, I think, over 1,000 covers. It's I don't know if it's 1,000 books or hundreds of books.
A lot of work, man. I ain't even think about that right now. I don't even want to hear that number. 1,000 books. All right. So,
It's funny too. It's it's an 80-20 rule of any business. Like 20% sells 80% of. So we just like to try a lot of stuff. One of our coolest projects we did that I really hope to do something again with it. It was called Yumiko Morales, Curse of the Merch Girl. Just Merch Girl for short. I don't know if anybody on here is familiar with Murs, the rapper. He and I co-created the characters, and then I wrote the book. Murs did an album that went with it, and like each chapter of the book corresponded with an album. I mean, with one of the songs. 10 chapters, 10 songs, and then the back of the book was all of the lyrics, and so that was really fun. He's actually on Twitch a lot now. He's one of those indie musicians that just puts out so much content.
Word. All right. So now let's get to the phase where what the heck is going on today? We've had about 1,000 years of publishing. Now that you're taking a pivot into equity, what is the game plan now? The new frontier.
So that's this brand new company that we're launching called Pop Cultivator, and it's really we've been publishing for a long time. Devil's Due sort of has its like this like kind of edgy niche, but I know a lot of people in the business who are all people who've sort of come up from the bottom of really knowing the experience of how they're of actually creating and shipping product. And I wanted to put together a team where we just have a completely clean slate to create a bunch of brand new comic books that we can share an ownership of with all of the investors using the crowdfunding. Because with the equity crowdfunding, we've been doing Kickstarter for years. And I think, to my knowledge, of one of the only publishers, at least one of the first publishers, that interwove the Kickstarter with how the traditional publishing works. So it's like the ad's going to drop in the Diamond book in the catalog for the comic book shops to see so they can place orders. We would launch our Kickstarter campaign right before that, and then we would have it ending right when the ad drop for the stores. Then we get our orders in, and we can print everything at the same time. And that way, we're able to do all these different books that we might not have been able to do just going through that traditional route. And the missing piece of the puzzle, after all these people have been supporting us for so long, is why can't we just give ownership in the actual IP, in the actual or contracts or whatever the company owns? Why can't we just involve people into that? And as you know from having done this, the answer to that was for a long time because it was against the law. You weren't allowed to do equity crowdfunding because it just went back to some ancient, Depression era 1930s laws. Obama came along, signed the Jobs Act in, and then it took a few years for that to get enacted, and then it took a few years for the websites to catch up. WeFunder was one of the pioneers there, and now we got it. Took me longer. I had this idea years ago, and then finally sort of just revisited it. No, we need to do this. And really, COVID coming along and just disrupting the whole comic book game really was what I was already planning to do this. I'd been prepping for it. You're busy and you're publishing things and you blink and a couple of years fly by, we were finally ready to do it. And then COVID hit and it's okay, we're definitely launching this now. And it's me. This is like a Justice League Voltron team of people from comic books and related pop culture.
Yeah.
So me for the publishing background, Mike Horn from Palisades. He formed the former founder of Palisades Toys. They did Muppets toys, Nickelodeon toys, Invader Zim. They did South Park, Fairly Odd Parents. They did Muppets, Aliens, Predator. They did all kinds of awesome stuff. And he's also done super high-end, collectible, limited quantity items too. So I've got a perfect partner there. Then Jose Garibaldi came in, who is one of the key supporting artists on Dogman and Captain Underpants for the last several 8 years.
Yeah,
literally the best-selling comics in the world. He's also, I mean, he's an incredible artist. And it's funny that stuff on Dogman and Cap is so simple because Jose is amazing. And we actually met before the G.I. Joe days. We met at Comic-Cons, late 90s, or just out there trying to make it. And we have a whole connected history there. And so he's bringing an original property to us called Ruby DIY. That's the working title right now. And it's going to be middle grade, aimed at a younger audience, maybe YA. It's about this little girl or this teenage girl who's she considers herself a maker, an inventor, and she's moved from things are working out where she's at in supposed to be Northern Cali Bay area, and she moves down to Sant'Angelo, which is fictitious, kind of like Oakland, and she has to live with her tia Rosa, who actually owns a scrapyard. So it's her little paradise of having all the different things she wants to build stuff with. Jose's got a whole bunch of background plan for that. And another book he's doing called History, written by Victor.
Yeah.
And then we've got Kit Coagas, who works with me on Devil's Due as assistant publisher, and sort of a jack of all trades. She started with us, and now she works with a couple other companies too. Mm-hmm. She's going to really be doing our talent management and interactions. Alma Silva is going to be she's handles events for people in the industry. She's handled a lot for me, and she's done everything from run entire conventions to helping us set up booths at major conventions like San Diego. And Mark Powers, former Marvel editor of the entire X-Men line of comic books, also an amazing writer. He's on board. He also used to be our senior editor at a time. He and I have co-written some stuff together. Sean DePasquale, he headed up this whole comedy website that Macaulay Culkin started a couple of years back when Mac wanted to do the side project. Manages podcast, which now he's going to be doing one for us. And Sean's a fantastic story editor for New York Times bestselling author, and he's a great writer. He worked on Sherrard with that Galaxies for Hire. So it's just all these connections.
Yeah.
And I've just put together my ideal task force to where we got the team, we got all the right people on the bus. Now let's just get the money to put the gas in the bus and go.
So I got a question then. Let's do hypothetical scenarios, right? So let's say Pop Cultivator is doing a Kickstarter, and there's a $250 tier. And in that tier, I'm going to go and I'm going to say, oh, I would like to get 2 or 3 books and, a poster and maybe some signed variant covers. And I'll pay, and maybe I'll get a side character or my name in the book or something. And that's my $250 are going to those purchases, right? I'm buying those products and the prestige of those products and my name in there or whatever. That's what I'm doing when I'm on Kickstarter, right?
Exactly, yeah.
But if I'm on WeFunder and I give you $250, if I recall, your campaign gives the person who who invests $250 all the digital books of your catalog from now until the end of the universe.
Yeah.
So the end of the universe, that's the first part, right? You get all digital books that they ever publish from now until the end of the world. And on top of that, you're actually buying $250 of actual equity, which means that if you guys do what you say you're going to do, then that money will get a pretty decent return. And if I recall, your valuation is $3.5 million or something like that. So it's super reasonable.
And only 3 right now up until that first 100K.
Yeah. So it's very, very reasonable right now. It's not that much of a stretch to have valuation double or triple in the next year or so once they start getting some titles and get one sold. Right? Because all you got to do is make one deal before all of them become basically hot topics, right? It's if you get one, the rest will most likely start getting like picked off because that one made everybody nervous. Right now, people are looking at you like, "Oh, damn, I might miss the opportunity because this one got picked up." And that is the real scenario of it. When you're doing Kickstarter, it's a donation. You're getting some products in return, something of value, but that's it. You're done. You're good to go.
And we really plan on, you got to be careful like what you actually say, because you got to make sure you promise this stuff really long term.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, of course we plan to like to hook people up with, if people are going to come in and buy stuff, Kickstarter support later on certain projects, and you happen to be an investor, yeah, we're going to find whatever ways we can to make that work. There's also other perks in there too for the higher levels, like getting into, discounts on product, getting, access to conventions, things like that. So, we don't control New York Comic Con or San Diego Comic Con or any kind, but
yeah,
if we're there and we have any leverage, now all of a sudden it's like, hey, yeah, get these people in, or we got X amount of exhibitor badges, you get the extra one. Like, that's the stuff we got to be careful about promising, but there's ways to do it. And that's the stuff we legit want to really help. And that's part of the reason why there's room to do different things in here. And Pop Cultivator is a new type of experiment where we're not a publisher. We are all of the people that fit that like we know instantly how to get it published, how to get the toys made, how to get the films going in the development process. But we're not beholden to anyone. And even myself as a publishing owner separated myself from that because, if Scholastic's Books wants to like take Jose's book and put it next to Captain Underpants and Dogman, yeah, we're doing that, so it's the best thing for the creator on a case-by-case basis. And we're the same thing with like, our job is just going to be to raising the money and then sort of like engage with our investor community. Alma Silva is coming on in specifically just like, that's one of her like main functions we brought on just for this, because this is a new kind of business where you do need to engage with the investor community. Like it's really it's what's so cool about WeFunder, man. It's like you're really, it's not just a bunch of like people buying stocks in, this is like a group of people you can really build the thing up with, and I just think it's exciting. It blows my mind. Like, I don't get it when I brought this up to a lot of.
I have a question here. Just one that was brought up by the crowd. They said, "Are they limited to certain areas?" So I guess the topic that you are publishing for or helping to get people into the industry, which titles are you aiming for? Is it a specific genre, certain age range? What's going on?
No, we're doing all kinds of genres and all types of age ranges. So we're gonna have fantasy, supernatural, sci-fi, horror. We're gonna have definitely some middle grade and YA, young adult content. So kids all the way up to, we'll have more adult content, and that's why we want to. We're going by what the property is and what is best for that specific comic book title. And then just organically out of that, without hopefully it comes across the right way too. Like we're just organically having a diverse mix of titles. That's diverse genres, diverse creative talent, diverse characters. Like that is like, we have a whole thing here.
In other words, you're like a comic incubator who actually funds comics.
Yeah, and it's
they do it, with startup companies and stuff.
It's kind of like a tech startup thing. Yeah,
there's these middlemen who are incubators, right, or accelerators, and they just come in and they train up that startup. They give them the tools they need to go and raise capital and do what they need to do, meet investors, and then they hand them off to the next stage, right? It's like the next stage of their company life. Hopefully, they get there, and the middleman is the one that helped them get there. They have some incentives. Sometimes it's government incentives. Sometimes it's private. Maybe it's the equity investors who are looking for someone to make sure that they run their companies right. Like, they don't want to invest in a company that doesn't know how to freaking manage themselves. So they're like, hey, if you're from this incubator, then I know you at least did your books correctly, so I don't have to worry about fraud.
Exactly. And you know what's so funny about that is when you really do the books, the actual magic secret that's not a secret at all is you've actually got to make comic books that are good comics that sell, because as we build them up, what you're really doing is you're building that backlist, and you're going to be selling like collected editions and trade paperbacks, and then big fat omnibus phone book collections. And even when you do hit that big goal of that movie deal or whatever,
yeah,
it feeds it back into selling the comics. The real money still comes back to being the comics. When we're talking about publishing, and that's why because we're not a movie studio, we're not trying to be an animation studio. That's not our, we're the team that's bringing it all back to the comics, that knows how to get those sub licenses done.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're not looking to build it up to be able to hopefully we can become a movie studio. We're like, no, we're in it because if you're going to do that, then that's what you're building up the whole animation thing, and you're going to go far with that. And that's where we differ, where we may be having a title in the future that's doing a deal with your animation studio sometime, but we exist as I just wanted to have access to be able to fund cool stuff but it's being curated and incubated by people that know what they're doing in all aspects of the industry. Not like somebody from Wall Street came in, put in money for someone to start a publishing entity that's just gonna, that just doesn't care, and they just want to get movies made, and that's really all they care about. They don't have a mission of any other kind. They don't, it's just, we love comics, and everything comes back to the comics.
Okay, let me go and give everybody the link, because they asked me for the link, so I'm going.
Yeah, that probably help.
Real quick. It's in the description too, so if you just look at the description, guys, you'll see a link to his equity round for Pop Cultivator. Basically, if you invest in his company, you're basically investing in a comic book incubator or accelerator that gets the people from the early stage to the late stage. Additionally, if you're a comic creator, you might get some very important insights in those investor meetings when they're talking about what they're actually doing to implement this acceleration of these properties into, big productions, right? So sometimes the insider knowledge itself is worth the money, right? You put $100 in, you put $100 in, and you get like $5,000 worth of freaking insider secrets to the industry, because he has to disclose it, because you're an investor, right? So yes.
Yeah, and I that's what it's like. When you do this stuff for a certain amount of time, you just get to where, if you just get the right people together, stuff starts to happen. Like, I'll tell you, this is legit happened after we put our team together. So Jose works on Dogman.
Mm-hmm.
Mike is the toy guy I mentioned, who knows anybody and everybody in licensing and everything else. And they don't even know each other. They know me. I was the dot connector, and other than some Zoom calls, they were still getting to know each other. Completely unrelated. Something else Mike's helping somebody with, doing these cool little paper craft, little sculpture toys. The Dogman people come on and they get the Dogman license, not even knowing that Jose was one of those guys. And that's already just two people on our own little team where that happened. And there was something else that just came in with a license that we're looking at for Devil's Due, where I can't talk about what that is yet, but I just reached out to our PR guy about, have you worked on, are you familiar with this project? And he's like, oh, I actually did promotion for that thing 15 years ago, and I used to date the producer. So that, it's just a legit group of people who actually have this body of experience. Those kind of things just happen. They start quick.
Right? It's like everybody's in it. He said, when you're in, you end up running into a lot of people no matter what. Things start to happen. Okay.
We're actually the one thing I think that's kind of good for people to understand on the investment side, the way we're building up equity in these brands is we have three main categories, and that's going to be brand new content, stuff that we create from scratch that the company owns outright. There's going to be what you kind of call an aqua hire, where there is a professional out there who's got a project that's developed, but they just need help or it's been published somewhere else. Like we'll work with them where we share in it, and then there'll be some of the up and coming just not really. It can't be completely creator owned if we're gonna bring in have something that investors shared and everything, but those kind of deals where we bring some people in from the very beginning stage, and that's you build those up. So we may have some titles that we really we get the funding, we'll be able to get some really big name talent to come in. Of course, they're going to be a little more expensive, but they're going to sell more product. But we still can nurture the stuff that we see that's no, that's cool. Like we want that. We're going to build this thing up, and we're and I just made it to where I want to embrace what's fun about the WeFunder thing is let's make this so whatever we raise, we can do different things at different scales. So if we, but no matter how much we raise, it just scales up. So you're either going to do this many projects, or you're going to do this many projects.
Yeah.
Team
development.
Yeah, and with the team, there's no learning curve. So there's no we're not be fumbling over figuring out how to get stuff. If all of a sudden someone's got a major opportunity, and Barnes and Noble wants it, and Amazon wants to do a promotion, and some big box retailer wants a bunch of waterfall end cap displays, and we've done all that stuff before. Somebody on the team's done it. Like I say that in the video spiel, I think. We're ready to go. We just want to make cool shit.
All right, so I got a question right here. What is and it says incubator program, but basically, what are the qualifications for an indie writer or creator to bring their comic to you and say, hey, run with this? What do I got to do?
Right now, we're going in stages. Right now, we've got a lot of projects we're looking at, but we're working on. I've got a form platform that's going to be where you're going to be able to come in and just submit your stuff into the form so that we can filter everything coming in properly. And then, because if you just send it in manually or whatever, that's going to be it's just really all over the place. So we want that to be really streamlined. I'm expecting to get that out shortly after the holiday. Then but we're looking for packaged teams. So we're not, right now, we're not, I believe you, Manuel, you're putting actual teams together and building a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I do more stuff on the recruitment side as well. Yeah,
we're not doing that. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves. If we've got, we're ready to. We are. I mean, I've done that my whole career. But there's so much content out there that's already packaged and people are ready to go.
Yeah.
It's you can't even get through all those before you get to the person that's got the
So let's say somebody had a comic book. How many issues would they need to have out before you were like, okay, this might be a good fit?
Well, the thing about having the funding is if we see a lot of, obviously there's always it depends, but in general, you got 10 pages of story done, and you got the plot and everything. So first, it's all about quickness. Can you look? What's the hook? 2-sentence hook. Don't give you a whole bunch of stuff to read right away. The hook.
I hate that too.
Then I want to see what's the art and what's it look like put together, and then you see okay, you got enough pages of comic to read to get into it, and then only then do you get through okay, I want to see more. Maybe you put a one-pager of a little bit more information about where it's going from there, but that's it. We don't want to see this. Everyone's different. You talk to 5 different publishers and get 7 different answers. That's all I would want to see in a submission, because we've got a lot of stuff to get through, and you're trying to get through the layers of getting people to pay attention to you. So for an editor or a publisher, anyone looking at that, they want to know that fast if it's something that draws their attention enough to look at it more. You're just trying to get to that one page for them to look at it more than 5 seconds. That's all you're trying to do at first. Then and then don't overload them. Then they just need to see then you'll get whittled down to okay, that's a cool idea, and this is some great art. Looks like a good idea. look a good team. Then they've got to get through like, okay, can this person actually write though? Maybe they wrote a.
Uh-oh. Did we lose him? Did we lose Josh? Let's see. All right. Well, while he's probably reconnecting, I am going to pull up the next question because I think this one's for me. Are you going to do another competition? Yes, I will. I will be doing a competition on January 1st. We'll be opening up 3 different competitions for our patrons. So anybody who's a patron for me, you're going to see 3 competitions. One's going to be on a female survival story. So we're talking about a survival, whatever. And that's what we're going to be doing. And then on top of the survival, we're also going to have a story about, and this is a crazy one. So I want to see what kind of madness you guys do with this pitch competition for a grand tournament in ancient Mali. It's going to basically be like a Knights tournament or something, like for like a whole bunch of African nations. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be like freaking, that Baki feel, right? For like African culture. So I think it's going to be pretty crazy. These pitches are going to be interesting because you guys can't just say cool fights. That ain't going to work. You got to tell me a compelling story about one character or maybe a couple of characters in the story, why it matters that they're in this tournament doing what they're doing. And then lastly, we have another one, and it's a toss-up between these other 2 competitions. They kind of got the same amount. Thinking we'll do the Moorish one. So we have one where it's about the beginning, the sustainment, or the fall of the Moorish Empire in Spain, right? So you got a huge giant window of like 600 years, right, to make a story somewhere in there. And it don't got to be a war story. It could be a freaking drama. It could be a political story. It could be a religious story where it's like, multiple different, Muslims and Christians. How the hell they dealt with each other in Spain. There was like a white peace over there. It wasn't true peace, but there was like, Spain had, Spain never left. They had land up north, right, where they were like, all right, we're done fighting you. We kind of took up this space. You could stick around if you want. We're not gonna kill you. And they were like,
who was that king? Who was that king that was like the richest? He's like arguably the richest person ever alive.
Oh yeah, that's Mansa Musa. That's the one, yeah. Mali Empire. So we'll see what we do with this tournament one. But I'm pretty psyched about that one because it's different. It's basically, we don't ever see a grand tournament in the heart of Africa.
Didn't he have an entourage of like 60,000 people?
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
Like he would just like, there you go, there's your deal. He just gets bored one day and says, I want a tournament of all of the best warriors in the world.
That's what I'm saying, right? Why not, right? If he could do 60,000 people and walk to Mecca, he could probably do a grand tournament with like the strongest, most powerful warriors.
Except it's ancient times. It's ancient times, so he's like, I want it to happen. I'll see you in 5 years. Be here.
That's what it is too, right? 5 years from now, and that's a really good scene set.
You got some like Native American guy shows up in Africa, like, I'm here. I heard about the money.
The premise right now. He said 5 years from now there will be a grand tournament. You can see like those little fucking Mortal Kombat scenarios where it's like, in 5 years.
I always wanted to do a book with that idea, the cover image, just to grab people. It's this like badass like Amazonian warrior jumping up in the air ready to attack a Roman soldier, and it's about the failed conquest or the failed trip into South America from Rome, and it was inspired by actual sunken ships off the coast of Brazil that they found like in the 70s or 80s that had Roman coins on them, and like 2,000-year-old Roman coins, and they went in, the Brazilian military went in and buried them all because they were worried that Portugal was going to start. I mean, that Italy was going to start arguing for easier citizenship, like Portugal gets. It was like wild idea to think that like there might have been some like weird crossing of worlds. Anyway, I don't know. Totally different. Why different what you're talking about, but like the same.
So
it reminded me of that.
Giselle asked, "What is your cut? Since you're a middleman, what is your cut?" How does that work? If you're telling to to if you sell a title from somebody else to Scholastic, what is your cut?
That depends on every different publisher's got a different deal. What we're looking at doing is leveraging the fact that we're going to be pre-funding these and having them ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
So we get a more favorable deal. Like, let's say the deal would normally be 50-50 at publisher X. Well, we might have 65-35 because or even better, because we're bringing it to them ready to go. I mean, or in some cases, there's like Image Comics where the barrier to entry there is just
get approved.
Do they want it or not?
Yeah, get approved.
Yeah, but you know what they did to filter stuff out is they said, you know what, used to be you have to have a whole issue done. Now they're like, no, you can't submit anything unless you get 3 issues done. And 3 complete full colored lettered issues ready to go. That takes people with working their day jobs or something, even if it's a well-known professional comic book creator, they still have their day job of making other comics. It takes years to get that stuff together. There's all kinds of scenarios like that in between, which is that's what I'm really excited about Pop Cultivator, being able to say, look, we got you, like we got your budget for this in return for exchange for sharing in it, and now you can get that book done. And on top of that, besides you taking that book to besides helping you get it published, now you've got your management team that's actually going to get this thing getting it on the path to getting merchandising and developed for film and everything else, while helping to make sure the comic's moving along well. And that's really where it's an asset and a benefit to the creators. And if you're just looking at this from the investor side or the fan side, know that that's the value and like something different that we're bringing. So let's say, like I think someone had asked earlier about what separates Black Sands and Pop Cultivator. Pop Cultivator is actually publishing, actually developing an animated project. Like I have a publishing company, Devil's Due. Pop Cultivator could very well, maybe Black Sands has got a bunch of stuff going on and they just kind of cut off looking at things for a while, or whatever thing. But we see something we like, and and you say, hey, that does look cool, but bring it back to me later and I'll take, we help get that thing done. Black Sands could very well be the company we're doing that deal with. Maybe we just sign some like, hey, we've got a new property we incubated and we're going to do a publishing deal with Black Sands, and it's going to, they're also interested in developing it for, an option for animation, and then we go off and do our other merchandise with it, and do other things with it. That's just one of many scenarios we can do. So that's the flexibility of what we're building it's just legit, like looking at what we think is cool stuff and can we help it, and knowing that there's a team that's got a plan for it. Like we're not going to pick anything that we don't have some kind of plan for and how we could develop that all in the different areas, and also not forcing it though into the wrong areas. Not trying to like be extra thirsty, like merchandising something it's not ready to do that yet.
Gotcha. And for us specifically, Black Sands, we don't look to sell anything into the industry. Like for real, like we're very independent. We sell directly to consumers. So if you know who your audience is and you're like, hey, my audience is African American, period, right? And you just say, that's my core, my story's about that. I think it's going to resonate the most with this audience. Then then you want to talk to me, because that's the people I do numbers with that, right? And most of the time, my price points are almost significantly higher than most traditional comic book routes in the first place. Because the customers buy it more for the idea of it, right? The idea, the meaning of the story, as opposed to just a cool comic book. Right, so we have more of a higher price point, which means better royalties, and people get bigger returns faster. But it's very niche, right? I'm not somebody doing a million different things. I'm not doing super adult stuff. So anything with intense violence or gore or sex or any of that stuff, it don't fit with my audience, right? I have a very specific thing, and I'm very picky when it comes to that aspect of it, the content level. Well, you said whether it's acceptable to a younger reader and stuff like that, right? I don't care if it's made for younger readers, but it should still be acceptable.
Hey, and that opens the door for another publisher, that wants to target that audience that is going to do the adult stuff. Like that's what's the whole market is growing, and that's why Spike from Iron Circus Comics, the African American woman, she's just crushing it, and she does kids books, and then she's not doing like the animation stuff like that, but she's just a traditional publisher, does a lot of Kickstarter. She does very young books, and then she also does these adult books, which she calls the dirty like smut peddler. Like she makes fun with it, and she's like dominating, and and she's like the same thing. Like she just built that all out on her own. Because I've been to these like retailer conferences. I go to like 2 a year. Well, now they're not happening now, but I mean, you look out, sea of 500 retailers. I mean, how many are black? Maybe 10. I mean, it's crazy. Like, and you've got Atomic City Comics in Philly. There's actually another one in Philly. I forget the girl's name. It has the coffee shop. There's just It's so you run. There's such a serious heavy topic of the racial disparity, and then the market not understanding the demand that's there.
Yeah.
On a much more superficial level, we deal with that.
We deal with that. One thing I will say though is that there is a huge cultural divide between comic book shops and Barnes and Noble or
absolutely, yeah.
Booksellers, because the booksellers have gone crazy with black representation.
Because they look at data. It's not by 1,000 models. Yeah. I gotta plug my computer. I'll be right back. My power's running out.
Yeah, it's like manga. They go crazy over this stuff. And, so the shift has been happening. If you guys are wondering, there is a major shift. But most of the time, somebody who's making black content will most likely land in Barnes and Noble before they land at the local comic book shop. It's just the way it is, right? It's like that's how it's working. Let me see if I can follow up some other questions that we saw here. Let's see. I don't want to miss any. This is a funny one for me. When is the investment round for the video game? Well, I'm actually gonna basically grassroots build a demo, with like 50,000, and I'll go to Kickstarter. You don't have to worry about an investment round. I'll go to an investment round if you guys like force me to. Like if I get a whole bunch of people saying I'm putting 10,000 in, like day one, right? Sign me up. I'll sign a contract right now. That kind of thing. And I had a whole bunch of people doing that, then I'll be like, oh, okay, I guess I'll do the investment round, right? But it's typically not what I would do. I'd probably just go to Kickstarter, because Kickstarter has a diehard video game like society. So right, like just all you gotta do is have a really polished looking, beautiful video game, and most of the time it's gonna do multiples of what you're trying to raise. So it's hard for me to not pick Kickstarter. The only way I wouldn't pick Kickstarter is if there was like a massive base, like day one showing up for an investment round for the video game. But we will be developing games for sure, because I'm addicted to them, and I got to have my own. Let's see what else we got here. Let's see. Okay, here's a good question for you. What protection does the artist have if a project becomes a big hit? Will your company take a bigger cut of ownership? Hey, you're muted. I can't hear you. Oh, wait a second.
There we go. I was saying something earlier too, and I just thought you.
Oh, no, I wasn't hearing Jack, so I ain't seen nothing.
Oh, I was gonna make fun of I know you had to have had some experiences like this where people outside the industry who just don't understand the crowdfunding thing, and then when they find out that we've been doing Kickstarter, now we want to do WeFunder, they're like, wait, you're gonna do more crowdfunding? I love it because you're doing that and you're doing Patreon. It's like, yeah, you don't get it. Like it builds and builds, and and I'm like, please stay ignorant of this. Please just don't get it for a long time so I can do it. But yeah, so I was saying, Jamal, to answer that question, yeah, those deals are set in place beforehand. So it's not typically like, oh, then if it hits and becomes big, now we're going to take a different cut. That's all. Usually that would be the other way. If something took off, you might have a trigger that kicks in later if it hits a certain benchmark where, you get more actually. But typically our, industry standard.
It's usually more favorable to the creator themselves at the higher it goes, right? Because way past the break even point, it's like I think royalties, whenever we talk about royalties in the traditional industry, it's like starts off at like 10% and then may goes to 15% after a certain threshold, and then 17% after like a gigantic threshold. They're like,
you're doing a standard indie deal where you're waiting for all the expenses to be recouped first. Then you're waiting for that point where you get there where it's pure gravy until you have to do some more reprinting, and then you're waiting for the printing cost to come out again, and that's all you're worried about. And that's how you build a career as an independent creator over time. So like, regardless, aside from the exceptions, like, Alan Moore writing Swamp Thing, or writing Watchmen or something like that, you've got you build a collection of books that over time, they recoup all their costs, and then you just start getting those royalties coming in from, like to where the point where the thing was paid for like 10 times over, and then you just got that money trickling in from it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, all right. I think we're good for questions. Now, just remember, guys, the link is in the bio. I'm going to put it up again for you guys. So you can just click the link if you want to invest. And if you don't want to invest, we want to buy some comics, go buy some comics. They got a lot of comics. They got like 1 billion comics.
Yeah, check it out, please. Yeah, Devils Do Comics, devilsdo.net. I got we've got all kinds of stuff for sale in there. But Pop Cultivator is a brand new thing. We're developing stuff now, and
just look at the resumes. I don't even care. I don't even care about like what the campaign says or what they do or whatever. Just go over there and look at the damn resumes, and see. They got the LinkedIn's and everything there, so you can see what they've been doing.
We're starting a podcast. We're actually going to be starting a podcast because Sean and Alma both actually know how to be legit podcast producers. I don't.
Yeah.
They're and their theme is really going to be, talking about how we met. That's whoever's on the show, that episode talks about how you connected.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it'll be 3 episodes before we get to our own team, and every guest we bring on, we can talk about whatever we want, but it somehow gets into how we're connected back into like our industry, and that's it. And there's so many conversations that come out of that. It's like entertaining and hugely educational at the same time. And you kind of learn how it's not just all corporate, like, oh, we got to go do this thing. No, it's very personal. People got relationships that go back years, and that's like 90% of it too.
Yeah, get pulled into a group panel at a convention, didn't realize it. People there was like, it's like, oh, you work for what? Yeah, I'm this guy. Okay. Well, we should hit up afterwards. Yeah, absolutely. It's like, so I've had that a lot. I've had a lot of people that I met first time just from being in a panel, right, or being one of the guests at the convention. Then you end up being in the back with a whole bunch of other people who are like from.
I mean, one of the main dudes on there, Jose. I mean, I wouldn't know him if I wasn't self-published in my little black and white indie at some tiny show in Chicago in like '98, and my like buddy that came with me happened to like see a hotel party going on with a bunch of people from Lansing, Illinois, and that's how we met. And then then you become like convention friends and shit like that. So, but thanks for having me on here too, man. And I will say to anyone who's like, I'm vouching as someone who's been entrenched in the industry for a long time. I've watched, what Black Sands is building here, and as someone who's already, I came in from outside though with like the '80s thing and was like, always like, why don't you guys understand this? And then I, trying to always do like the crowdfunding and Kickstarter. I see that with Black Sands and just building something really special here that you guys are all part of, and and you're all helping support it. That's super cool because it really is building something that the industry will wake up and be like, oh shit, how'd that happen? Too late.
Yeah. That's how it's gonna be, right? It's like there's enemies at the gate. What gate? The front door. It's like,
Yeah.
So we're in there, man. If anybody's watching Attack on Titan, the final season, right? He said, I'm the dude with the bandage on in the internment camp. Talking about things about to go down. He said they don't even know who they let in the building. And he said who knows what kind of destruction I'm gonna cause once I let loose. But I'm in the door right now and they can't stop us. So you gotta be able to get in early, man. That's why I tell people. People who invested in my company in February, they already took their stock price, right? And then we cleaned this campaign quick. So stock price is gonna go up again, and nobody's gonna argue because it killed them both like quick, right? So if you invested in the first round, you happy as hell right now because because your stuff is just doubling and doubling and doubling. Ain't even a full year go by, and it's already showing the numbers. And if we keep this traction on and we get to our Series B, we're going public. We're gonna go public at Series B, guaranteed. And right now we're in our official seed. We just closed out our small seed, but now we're about to go into a real seed with BSP. Fund a couple of individual projects, and then do a Series A maybe in 2022. So 2022 will be our Series A, and that's gonna be a big ass round, right? But we would have done a lot of damage by then. And you got to have this stuff already planned out, otherwise you ain't ever gonna be able to take over the world. You got to really just you got to say, how do I get to this point? How do I get to this valuation? I can't just say I'm worth this much. How do I prove it, right? And if we do it right,
it's fun to be part of this stuff too, while like everybody else is sad about everything. So it's like,
yeah, that's right. It's like the world's ending for a lot of people right now. But we can survive this because we've been doing business in a different way for a long time, right? So we don't have to go to no shows if you like our ecosystem doesn't stop the second shows don't exist anymore.
I mean, so with what AT&T is doing with Warner Brothers with DC Comics and like what Disney's looking at with the theme park with Marvel and who knows what's going on there, like they are kind of like Rome, and we're like Hannibal and Basilius and all the big barbarian tribe.
I know Disney's pissed like crazy. All they got is the Mandalorian.
Mandalorian saved their ass.
Marvel sales has been down so bad that they're making like 12 Star Wars shows to try and salvage the one fucking IP they have left that's worth anything.
We need to come out on our next investor meeting and just announce 30 different titles we're coming out with over the next 5 years, just so we have money right now.
It's like I don't take nothing they do seriously. They're starting to sign a lot more African creators, right? And like stuff for like African American. They're like, hey, in 2022, 2023, we're gonna release this show. And I'm like, I don't know if Disney Plus is gonna be here in 2022, 2023. Y'all might cut the losses by then. You say, yeah, because these deals are on the condition that the platform still exists by then.
Make sure those reversion contracts are good.
Yeah, Quibi was like that. Some of my friends got deals, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I got a deal, son. My animation's coming." And then Quibi filed for bankruptcy, right? They were throwing stuff at the wall as much as they could to try and get investors excited, right? Subscribers, and then it wasn't happening. They cut the losses, and these shows never got made.
Didn't they drop $2 billion on that company?
Something they did. They lost a lot of money.
You mentioned one other anime, though, reminded me. We published the first ever Cannon Busters comic book, which LaShawn went and turned into a whole like animated series on Netflix. If you got a lot of like anime fans, they'd probably definitely check that out before.
Yeah. So we're gonna holler at you, man. And remember, if you want to invest. All right. I just look at the resumes, right? So I just look at the resumes and I make my decisions. I don't like looking at all the other things unless they have some glaring weakness. I usually take their word for it, right? If they say some stuff like I'm gonna bring back old retro arcades, then I'm gonna be like, what the hell y'all doing, right? But if they talk about, hey, we're just gonna bring titles to other reputable companies, right, and make that play for the creator who can't make that play by themselves, Simple process, a very simple idea. The only thing that you need in that, it's not a revolutionary system or some hardcore technology you got to develop. It's simply having the people who know how to make the fucking deal.
Honestly, that's our biggest thing is like where we explain what we do, and they're like, and like, no, that's it. That's what we're doing. But look at the team.
Like, it's like there's nothing else to it. Don't think about no revolutionary idea, no super genre or the best selling. It doesn't matter. We just broker deals and we make sure that the people who we're trying to get deals for produce the product. So if you got a problem with producing your product because you can't afford the capital, we'll handle that, and then we'll be shopping your product while you're developing it. Good luck. Simple arrangement. And probably a lot less freaking red tape than Dark Horse.
we deal with the red tape, and you just know you're protected.
There's a lot less red tape with that. So yeah. So do what you gotta do, guys. We're out. Josh, great time, great conversation. You bring a lot of insights to our people here who are usually watching, mostly investors, patrons, and stuff like that. And of course, this video will be on our platform later on for anybody who needs to catch up on this or missed it, they're at work or whatever is going on. We got this video on here permanently, so you'll be able to check it out. And the link is in the description. Pop Cultivator, all right, on WeFunder. Get into the investment life. Invest in people. Don't invest in properties, because properties can always blow up. People usually don't. They stick around for a couple of centuries. So that's what we're going to do. All right. See you later.
Thanks for having me. Peace.